It's strange how a single sentence, spoken in the wrong moment, can shatter the image of a life you thought was unshakable. My name is David, and until that night, I believed my marriage to Emily was built on trust, love, and mutual respect. We weren't perfect, of course. No couple ever is. But I thought we had something solid, something strong enough to withstand the ups and downs of life. That belief crumbled in a matter of seconds. It was a Saturday evening, the kind of night you imagine when you think of simple happiness. Our living room glowed with soft yellow light, the table set with half-empty plates and glasses that glistened under the warm bulbs. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic bread still lingered in the air, mixing with the faint citrus scent of the candle Emily had placed in the center of the coffee table. Our closest friends were there: Mark, my oldest buddy from college, his wife Sarah, and Emily's co-worker Jenna. The room pulsed with laughter, playful banter, and the comfort that only comes when people know each other well. I remember leaning back on the sofa, a plate balanced lazily on my lap, and thinking to myself, this is what life is supposed to feel like. Warm, steady, safe. But life has a cruel way of taking the smallest spark and twisting it into a firestorm. I had no idea that within the hour, the woman I trusted most would deliver a blow that would change our marriage forever. The night had all the ingredients of something ordinary, yet beautiful. Mark was in the middle of telling one of his wild college stories, the kind he's probably exaggerated 100 times, but we never get tired of hearing. His wife, Sarah, rolled her eyes as if she'd heard it 1,000 more, though her smile betrayed her amusement. Emily sat across from me, her wine glass catching the light as she swirled it lazily. Her laughter rang out easily, filling the room in a way that made me proud to call her my wife. She had always been the social one, the one who knew how to keep a conversation alive, how to make people feel welcome. I admired that about her. Jenna, the newcomer to our circle, chimed in every so often with sharp wit that kept us all chuckling. The room felt alive, every corner touched with a sense of belonging. As I leaned back, soaking it all in, I thought about how rare these moments were. Life has a way of pulling everyone in different directions: work, stress, responsibilities. Nights like this felt like a reminder of what mattered: friendship, love, and laughter echoing against the walls of our home. Emily caught my eye and gave me a quick smile, the kind that said, "We did good, didn't we?" My chest warmed. We had built this life together, piece by piece, and though there had been bumps along the road, I believed we were stronger because of them. If someone had asked me right then, I would have said I was happy, completely, utterly content. I didn't know that happiness can be fragile, that sometimes it takes only a single careless word to turn an evening of joy into a memory that haunts you forever. It started small, almost harmless. Mark, always the jokester, leaned back in his chair with a grin and said, "You know what they say about men? Our egos are like glass. Handle them too roughly and they shatter." The group chuckled. It was the kind of throwaway line people toss around without thinking, the sort of playful jab that usually fades as quickly as it arrives. I even smiled, shaking my head at his dramatics. But Emily, she didn't let it pass. With her glass of wine resting delicately in her hand, she tilted her head and gave one of those sly smiles I'd seen 1,000 times before, the kind that usually meant she was about to say something clever. But this time, her words weren't clever. They were cruel. "Well," she said, her voice light but laced with something sharp, "some men have every reason to feel insecure. Not everyone measures up, if you catch my drift." The room went still. For a split second, silence hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Her gaze flicked toward me, locking in place as if to make sure everyone caught her meaning. And then she laughed, bright, loud, the kind of laugh that cuts deeper than any blade. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, as though she couldn't decide whether to laugh or look horrified. Jenna let out a quick chuckle, but her eyes darted to me, uneasy. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The laughter that followed wasn't joyful. It was strained, nervous, teetering on the edge of discomfort. And me? I sat frozen. My chest tightened, my ears buzzed, and for a moment it felt like the ground beneath me gave way. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't some random voice on the street. This was Emily, my wife, my partner, the woman I'd chosen to build a life with, cutting me down in front of the very people who mattered most to us. Her words sliced through the warmth of the night, leaving behind a cold that wrapped itself around me. I wanted to tell myself it was just a joke, that she didn't mean it, but the way her eyes lingered on me, waiting to see if the dagger landed, that told me everything. The betrayal didn't come from the joke itself. It came from her. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. For a few long seconds, I stayed frozen. My mind spun, thoughts colliding like waves in a storm. A part of me wanted to brush it off, to swallow the sting and pretend it hadn't pierced as deep as it had. That's what I'd always done. Keep the peace, avoid confrontation, let things slide for the sake of harmony. But this time, I couldn't. Something in me snapped, a fire roaring to life where silence used to be. I wasn't going to sit there, stripped of dignity in front of my closest friends and let the woman I loved reduce me to a punchline. I leaned forward slowly, the plate sliding off my lap onto the table with a quiet clink. The room seemed to shrink, everyone's eyes darting between me and Emily. My voice came out calm, too calm, the kind of calm that carries weight. "Maybe I'm just average," I said, fixing my gaze directly on hers. But when someone plays in a field that wide, even the strongest athlete can look small. The silence that followed was deafening. For a fraction of a second, no one moved. Then, as if on cue, the room erupted. Laughter burst out, louder, sharper than before. Mark doubled over, slapping his knee. Sarah buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Even Jenna, who had looked uncomfortable earlier, covered her mouth but couldn't hide her amusement. The sound filled every corner of the room, bouncing off the walls, impossible to contain. But it wasn't at me, not this time. It was at her. Emily's smile vanished instantly. Her eyes widened, her cheeks flushed crimson, not from the wine, but from the raw humiliation that washed over her. She shifted in her seat, her hand trembling as she set her glass down. For the first time that evening, she had no words. Tears welled up, glistening under the dim light. She looked around the room, desperate for someone to rescue her, to shift the attention away. But no one moved. The laughter was too strong, too uncontrollable. Her lips quivered as she pushed back her chair with a screech. Without saying a word, she bolted upstairs, her footsteps pounding against the wooden floor, before a door slammed shut with a force that rattled the house. The laughter died instantly, leaving an awkward silence behind. I sat back, projecting calm, though inside I was shaking. My heart raced, my hands trembled ever so slightly, but I kept my face steady. For once, I hadn't been the quiet, wounded husband. I hadn't swallowed the pain. I had stood up, and the entire room had witnessed it. The echo of the slammed door still lingered in the air, a sharp reminder of how quickly the night had unraveled. For a moment, no one spoke.
The once lively living room now felt like a stage after the curtain had dropped, silent, heavy, filled with the faint aftertaste of laughter that no longer belonged. Mark cleared his throat, shifting in his seat. "Well," he said awkwardly, "that escalated." His attempt at humor fell flat, his chuckle fading into the tense quiet. Sarah gave him a sharp elbow to the ribs and murmured, "Not helping." Her eyes flicked to me, filled with concern, as if trying to read my face. I forced a faint smile, pretending calm. Inside, though, my chest was a battlefield. One half of me burned with vindication. For once, I hadn't just taken the hit. I had fired back, and the impact had been undeniable. She had felt it. She knew what it was like to be stripped bare in front of others. But the other half, it twisted with guilt. Emily's tear-filled eyes replayed in my mind, her quivering lips, the way she fled the room as if I'd pierced her soul. I wondered if I'd gone too far, if my words had crossed the line from defense into cruelty. Jenna tried to pick up the pieces, her voice light and forced. "So, anyone want dessert?" The suggestion was absurd, and we all knew it. Still, we went along with it, not because anyone had an appetite, but because it was easier than sitting in silence. Plates clattered, forks scraped, meaningless chatter filled the air. But beneath it all, the night was broken. I smiled when required, nodded at the right moments. But inside, a storm brewed. The guilt gnawed at me, clashing with the satisfaction of having finally stood up for myself. When the last dish was cleared and the goodbyes were said, I sat alone in the quiet house. Upstairs, Emily's door remained closed. And I wondered, had I defended my dignity? Or had I just dealt a wound that might never fully heal?
The house was eerily silent the next morning. No sound of footsteps padding across the hallway, no soft humming from the kitchen, no clatter of dishes as Emily brewed her usual pot of coffee. I had slept restlessly, the night replaying in fragments. Her laughter, my retort, her tears, the door slamming. Every time I closed my eyes, those moments replayed, sharp and unforgiving. By the time I made it to the kitchen, the early sun was spilling through the blinds, casting thin golden stripes across the floor. I sat there at the table, a mug of untouched coffee cooling in front of me, waiting. It wasn't until nearly 9 that I heard her steps, slow, hesitant, like each one carried the weight of the night before. Emily appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes swollen and rimmed with red. She wore the same clothes from the night before, her hair tied back messily. She didn't look like the confident, radiant woman from the party. She looked fragile, stripped bare. She sat across from me, her hands trembling as she wrapped them around her mug. For a long time, silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." Her voice cracked, breaking on the 2 words. She kept her eyes lowered, staring into the steam of her coffee, as if afraid to meet my gaze. I didn't answer right away. Part of me needed to hear more, to know if she truly understood the wound she had left behind. Tears welled in her eyes as she tried again. I didn't realize how vicious it sounded. I thought it was just a joke. But when I saw everyone laugh, and then when you... She stopped, her throat tightening. When you turned it back on me, I finally understood. I felt that sting myself, and it was unbearable. Her voice trembled as she went on. You humiliated me, David. The man I promised to love and respect. I don't even know why I said it. I can't take it back.
And I hate myself for it. My chest tightened. Hearing her speak with such raw vulnerability cut through my anger, yet the memory of her words still burned. I leaned forward, my voice quiet but steady. Do you know what it felt like, sitting there, hearing you say that, in front of everyone? It wasn't just a joke. It stripped me. It made me feel small in a way I can't describe. Words like that don't fade. They stick. They scar. Her tears finally spilled over, running down her cheeks as she nodded. I know. And I'll never forgive myself for it. The room fell silent again, except for her quiet sobs. I sat back, torn. A part of me longed to reach across the table, to pull her into my arms and let it all dissolve. But another part held me still, the image of her mocking smile replaying in my head, reminding me that scars don't vanish with an apology. We sat there for what felt like hours, the silence heavy but necessary. Every now and then, Emily wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, her coffee forgotten, gone cold in its cup. Finally, she whispered, I don't know how to fix this. I can't undo it. But I need you to know, I never meant to destroy you like that. I love you, David. I love you more than anything. And last night, I became the person I swore I'd never be. Her words carried weight, but they didn't erase the sting. They couldn't. I leaned forward, my elbows resting on the table, and spoke slowly. Emily, love isn't about grand gestures or pretty words. It's about respect, about knowing that the one person you trust most will protect your heart, not tear it apart. Last night, you crossed a line. And once a line like that is crossed, it doesn't just disappear. She nodded, biting her lip, tears streaming freely again. You're right, and I'll never cross it again. I swear it. I don't care what it takes. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know I respect you. I wanted to believe her. I could see the shame in her eyes, the regret etched into her face, and I knew she meant it. But deep down, I also knew that no apology could erase the memory. Still, as I looked at her trembling hands, at the woman I had chosen to share my life with, I realized something important. Last night had taught us both. She now understood the weight of her words, and I had discovered the power of mine. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about triumph. It was about boundaries, drawing a line and saying, this is not okay. We talked for hours, both of us fragile, both of us scared of what might come next. And though the scar of that night would remain, we both knew it had changed us. Not for destruction, but for growth. Love isn't built on never making mistakes. It's built on learning from the pain those mistakes cause. And in that painful lesson, we found a way forward. Looking back, I don't think of that night as a victory. There was no triumph in seeing Emily's tears, no pride in watching her flee the room. What happened wasn't about winning or losing. It was about truth. Words carry weight. Once spoken, they can't be pulled back. They can heal, but they can also scar. And when those words come from the person you trust most, the damage cuts deeper than anyone else could ever inflict. That night changed both of us. Emily learned the sting of humiliation firsthand, and I learned the importance of standing up for myself, even when my voice shakes. Love isn't supposed to tear you down. It's supposed to build you up, to protect you, to remind you that in a world full of judgment, your partner is your safe place. Respect isn't optional. It's the foundation. Without it, everything else crumbles. The scar of that evening will never fully fade. But maybe that's the point. Maybe scars exist to remind us not just of the pain we've endured, but of the strength we found when we refused to let it define us. What about you? Have you ever been mocked, disrespected, or betrayed by someone you trusted most? How did you react? Did it change your relationship or yourself? Share your story in the comments. Your words might be the lessons someone else needs to hear tonight.